So, Arthur, a lot
Hey,
has happened in the last few weeks on the political scene. Have you something to say? What's on your mind?
I'm kind of waiting for you, Q, to see what we can talk about because since I was out of pocket for a while
Oh
traveling,
yeah.
uh,
Oh
but it's interesting. I as I catch up on the news, it's like same old to me because I'm seeing articles about uh, Trump is being somewhat frustrated that he doesn't know exactly how to strategically attack her or to go against
yes.
Kamala.
Yeah.
And he basically still has the same old, you know, you lie
They're
in this.
recycling headlines.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know if you do you watch Jon Stewart and his
I have.
Daily Show stuff, but
Not all the time, but yes,
there
I
was a
have.
good montage they had about the attacks he had uh, against Biden, and there were
Uh-huh.
direct quotes juxtaposed with the attacks he's having now with Kamala, and they're literally the exact same quotes, except
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
Kamala.
Yeah, yeah, no. Well, because these kind of quotes are sort of they're just formulaic. Not only the ones that Trump is hurling, but also the one that the liberal media is hurling at them. It's all just formulaic. It's almost like they just sat around in a meeting, they focus grouped it, they all wrote it together, and then they're trying. I feel like they have these headlines written. Now let's find the opportunity to apply them. I feel like that's what's become of our news.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I would say, I don't know. Look, I think the people who are already predetermined to vote one way or another, they're set. And they don't at this point there's either relief on the part of Democrats who now have a candidate under the age of 80, right?
Mm,
Or,
uh-huh.
or and some with some vigor, and or there's this idea that okay, we're still going to be supporting our candidate Trump, whoever, right? Whoever they may be. There, you have those people. The the issue I think now is what's different that will persuade those people who are in the middle or being able to swing either way, those swing voters, where do they stand? And for them, I think a lot of them were and are still looking for some substance on points about where people stand on a certain issue, where Kamala stands on an issue, where even Tim Walz stands on issues, because now he's in the picture,
Yeah,
and
they're not getting that though. Um,
they're not getting a lot,
no.
but they are getting some, and they're getting a better sense of whether he's a progressive liberal, moderate liberal, just a liberal, who knows. uh,
Where's the other option? Radical liberal. You kind of left that out.
yeah, well, there's, I don't know, they're all shooting for the middle, and
Uh-huh.
at some point, because that's where those swing voters are. They're not looking for that. So they're wanting to see what is going to percolate in terms of issues that are being discussed, or even topics, if not serious issues, topics that percolate up. Say, oh, where do they stand on abortion? Where do they stand on gun rights, or gun control, or gun rights?
Yeah.
Where do they stand on all these things? What about immigration? What about tariffs on China? What about relationships in Europe and NATO? I mean, these
It's
things.
almost like they're taking the fifth. It's kind of like a criminal defendant not going on the stand because they're just going to let the prosecution, they're going to let the other side do all the work. And in this case, they're hoping that by not doing interviews, by not speaking to the American public, they'll just wait for the Trump campaign to bury itself. That's what they're waiting for because they're not contributing anything. They're just hoping for the voters to, well, they are relying on everybody's imagination or fantasy of what the Harris Walls uh, ticket is going to give them, that
Yeah,
our fantasy of what it's going to be. And secondly, they're going to wait for Trump to bury himself is what that's the I think that's the game they're playing. That's their strategy.
yeah, that could be, but frankly, the onus is on Trump it's on him. You know, he is now on the back foot. And so
Hmm.
he's got to come out with something significant, and that is going to give it a good, I mean, give a good blow to whatever momentum has been building. It is, the onus is on him. It is not on Kamala and Tim Walz. Frankly, they're like, we're in a little bit more comfortable position, if not a lot more. And the last thing they want to do is put themselves out there on a you know on a limb and say, let's see if we can strike him on this issue and see what these voters in this fringe area think. They don't need to do that.
You don't. But you know why? Because how does a fish get caught? By opening its mouth. That's the problem. They don't. I don't think Kamala has the ability to articulate policy and answer questions and face a dissenter. And so that's their strategy for her. Say nothing. That's a better strategy than to come out in front of everybody and do, for example, what JD Vance is doing, which he'll talk to anybody and everybody who'll listen to him, right?
Yeah, I have a different take on that. It's not
Okay.
about saying nothing, but it's about uh, now waiting to see what opening they have. Like in
Mhm.
terms of opening your mouth, like they have the freedom and privilege or
Yeah,
luxury of being
yes,
able to
they're
wait.
sitting pretty right now. Yes, with the
They can
media
wait
sort
and
of.
say, let
Yes.
him speak, let him put whatever crap out there, and and then we'll just clean up. So now they don't have to do that. They don't have to do anything more than that. The other thing that Kamala has the luxury of being able to do, because frankly, I mean, this is something that the closest so-called advisors of Trump know very well, and this has been true from the day one, even before he was running for the first time. He doesn't listen to advisors. He doesn't.
Right. Well, he
That
doesn't
he
know.
sheds them
Being an
left
outsider,
and
he
right.
doesn't know who to trust either. But
Well,
yes.
no, for the one, no, it's he knows who he wants. He gets them, and he has them. And whether they were former defense secretaries or former attorneys general that worked for him or other campaign advisors, he would bring them on his team and he would summarily ignore them.
Hmm.
This has been a fact. There's
Yeah.
actually a very good article about the last 50 or 75 people who have been part of Trump's team.
Yeah.
And like, it's, I'm not exaggerating. It's something like 75, 80% of them have not only distanced themselves away from him, they have spoken highly against him. So
Hmm.
there's that. He's not listening to advisors. The reason I'm bringing this up is that not only does Kamala have the luxury of being able to wait to put his own foot in his mouth for Trump to do that, she can actually have this team that is going to say, you know what, this is what you need to say, and
Oh yeah.
she will probably follow along with that strategy, which is wiser than what he's doing. So
Yeah, I agree. I agree. She's smart enough to know that she's not that smart, so she's better off going with what the team tells her to
when
do. Yes.
it's about the team, I mean, it is not this whole endeavor, this campaign, the fact, the whole thing about Biden dropping out and her being able to, I don't think it was an anointment, but it was definitely a passing of a baton. Uh, this whole process underscores this idea that it isn't about a particular person in the Democratic Party right now. It is really about where can we take this enterprise called the Democratic Party and what they see as the future of the country. How can we take that forward? And that is where the team concept comes in. And she's a part of it. Look how or let's say of a non-player she was in this campaign up until Biden left out, or even as a vice president. Was she
Yeah.
like noteworthy? No.
No. No. I mean, She should never have been picked for VP, but I think the optics were right by choosing her, and that's how she ended up there. And then all of a sudden, Biden loses his head. All of a sudden, nobody's home, and so they gotta replace
Yeah,
him.
I
And
think
so
where the Democratic Party has it right is that it's not about the individual, even though her name is all over those campaign placards.
I see what you're saying. That she might have the name of president, but the president, if the Democrats win, is no longer an individual.
It
I
is going to be
understand.
an administration made
Yeah,
up of of people who are skilled in the craft of whatever they're doing in whatever field of policy or regulation that they have or knowledge. And no administration is perfect. What does Trump think about the concept of administration? I'll tell you, it's about who's loyal to me. He said it.
hmm Well, he sees the executive branch as an individual. That's what it is.
That's what he thinks it is.
hmm
And this tells me, for someone who's been in government for almost 36 years, he doesn't understand government. He didn't
No, he's not.
understand.
He's not a government. He's not a politician. He's a
No, no, no.
businessman. Yeah,
I don't think politician itself is being bad, but he doesn't even understand the mechanics or how the concept of government works in
he
our
doesn't want to
society.
play ball. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a bad thing.
Some
Because
people like him because he doesn't want to play ball and keep doing things the
yeah,
same old way, I guess.
you can only be a disruptor for so long
Yes.
until you have to figure out how to make things work.
Right, which is why he's going to start grooming Elon Musk.
To do what?
Well,
Yeah,
Elon Musk now
Secretary of State.
has
What?
set his sights on politics, right? It's begun. The wheels are in motion.
Yeah.
He's going.
Well, there's definitely a partnership there.
If Trump wins, he's going to be Elon Musk is going to be somewhere in his cabinet for sure.
Yeah. Well,
But
I don't know if he would. I don't know if he would devolve to that level.
no,
To
that
work
did
for
you
government.
listen? Did you listen to the interview? They were really broing out.
The one that the one that technologically fell apart in the beginning. That one.
Yeah, but most of it was still good though. For
Yeah.
a full 2 hours, it was fine.
Mm.
Did you listen to it? No, they were really, yeah.
I,
So they
I
were really
I did
supporting
not
each other.
catch much of it. I heard about it. So, I mean, do you think was there any surprise there, as far as even the
Well,
questions that he was posing?
I felt like Trump was rather unfettered, and he basically tore everyone a new one. And
Mhm.
then after that, the liberal media, they were putting out these headlines like Trump is incoherent, and it was just a complete unmitigated mess and all that. And I'm like, Did we listen to the same interview? He was not messy. He was very focused, repetitive, yes, but that's part of politics. But he had a line of attack and he stayed with it. He was like a dog with a scent. And so I don't know what these headlines were all about. They didn't make sense.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I don't know if it gave him a bump that he needed either.
I don't know.
I mean, I mean, was there a sudden surge like, oh yeah, finally, yes, we have somebody who's going to partner with Trump and who has real money. I mean, we already knew that. I mean, we already
Yeah.
knew he was there, uh, and he was that endorsement came for Trump quite some time ago in the large scheme of things, even though it was a few months ago. Uh, so
But I think that no, I'm looking at it not from the perspective of a wealthy billionaire is
yeah,
endorsing him. I'm looking at it from the perspective of it's Silicon Valley, it's big tech endorsing him. That's important because the Democrats have the benefit of the news media. They have the benefit of Hollywood. But what's bigger than both is big tech, right? And so
who do
that's
you
why it's symbolically very important that he did get that
who do you
endorsement
think
from
has
big tech.
more Silicon Valley support?
Sorry.
When you're talking about Silicon Valley, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the support they have for political candidates, and in this case, the presidential election, where do you think most individual Silicon Valley tech people
Hmm.
are going. You were saying that the majority of them are going for Trump, or the other?
No, I'm saying that the fact that you got big tech like Twitter or X now supporting him, I think that's a feather in his cap to win over big tech like that. I'm not saying every
Yeah,
tech company, right?
that's like one vote. I mean, that's like one vote with a lot of money,
Yeah.
but it's one vote.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
and
Twitter is a big disseminator of, information.
yeah,
That's why it's important.
in fact, that's why some of the Democrats are complaining to him officially about it. That he's not catching some of the false news about individuals and that have been pointed out to be false. To say, hey, why is this being propagated? And he has that power to do that.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, I don't know. I don't want to make too much. I don't want to put too much of weight on his support one way or the other because I don't think it's going to. I don't think it's new,
Hmm.
and I don't think it's right now changing the. Let's see. Yeah,
The
it's
narrative.
changing a lot of the dynamics of the election, right?
Well, we don't know yet. Sometimes
Uh,
it can happen later on down the road. Who knows?
all right. Well,
But
we have a new entrant in this race.
oh, Tim,
So, oh yeah, yeah. So let's
what's
talk
up with
about
that guy?
him. He's a
He's
now.
yeah.
What do you think about his character? What do you think about his sort of persona that he's
Well, I
coming
think I
with?
think that what they're saying about him, it does sort of line up in terms of just if you look at him, yeah, he looks like like the night like nice dad guy, like he's nice dad energy, right? But
Yeah.
he's done some really weird things, right? Like they're criticizing him for the way he handled the Minneapolis thing, the riots, and also
Mhm.
they're making fun of him for like, why are you spending money putting tampons in boys' bathrooms, and why the radical like uh, gender affirming legislation and things like that, or whatever. You know what
Yeah.
I'm talking about?
Yeah. I looked into that a little bit before we were going to talk about it, and I saw that the proposal for tampons in bathrooms
Uh,
was originated by a Republican,
uh,
and the thing that they were saying is uh, that obviously it would be in girls' bathrooms,
yeah,
and and his thing was, and I don't think it was his thing, but there were other members of the legislature that were saying, well, we have these transgender issues that we have to be addressing, and some of the people who are going through this menstrual cycles early in their age are actually biologically female, and so if they identify as boys, blah blah blah, we need to put it in boys' bathrooms also, and so he did go along with that, and yeah, I think in any other state that might be an issue. I don't think it would have been ever in places like New York, California, Minnesota, you know, uh, and a few others. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely when you put it on a national uh, level of scrutiny, like what's up with that?
that's that. Yeah, it's weird, and yet I don't know how lucky was he to be able to turn that phrase viral that JD is weird. And when he's doing something like that, I don't understand.
I think he's in that one. He's just trying to be like folksy and speaking
Uh-huh.
to people. Hey, you know what? I don't want to use any fancy language.
Yes, yes,
I
yes.
just want to say they're just weird.
Here's weird.
It's like they get that.
Yeah, it's weak sauce is what that is, because there are other words you can use that are a lot stronger. I don't know how weird just somehow stuck.
Yeah.
Because if you were especially if you're woke, you'd be like, "Hey, there's nothing wrong with being weird." Being weird is a great thing. So I don't but then at the same time, I'm not sure how all of a sudden weird stuck in a negative way. When to me, I don't think there's that much weird about JD Vance.
Hmm. Okay. There's a
Uh,
we'll have to go into some of the quotes he said.
Okay. Well, I think he's sarcastic, and he has some good ones, I have to
What
say.
about the one with about cats? and
You know
cat
what?
ladies.
I don't think that's okay. So I don't think that's weird. It may be a lot of things. It may be, you might say, oh, that's bitchy, that's sarcastic, that's whatever. But weird is not the word to describe that quote, you know?
Yeah, well, he was, I think in that quote, he was in an interview talking about uh, what the Democratic Party is.
Mm-hmm.
And that since he made this
A metaphor.
disparaging comment that they're not family oriented
Uh,
and that they don't have children. And that was the main disparaging point, by the way. Substantively, he was saying we need to have more children and we need to support the concept of families. And Democrats, in his view, don't do that because they're just cat ladies with no kids.
mm-hmm. He's a very,
That
he's a,
was pretty harsh when you're talking about
yeah,
the vast majority
that's okay.
of various demographic groups that are making up the Democratic Party, that they're not family oriented.
Hey, look, I think that for political purposes, for soundbite purposes, and he's a bit of a media whore. I'm gonna be honest. So if you're gonna be a little bit stronger, because if you're not, you're just gonna appear weak, and nobody's gonna even want to cover you, right? The news. So he's speaking hyperbolically, metaphorically. It's a
Yeah.
literary device, if you will, if
You know
I
what?
may.
He was
What?
asked about it afterwards. You know what he said?
What'd he say?
Said, I have nothing against cats.
Okay. Again, well, look
I
at
didn't
that's a
mean
very
that
good
as
politician
basically saying I
answer.
have it was not meant as any insult to cats.
That's funny. That is
Okay.
funny.
Um,
He
yeah, you
stands
know
by
what?
it. Yeah.
Look, I don't know. Right now, if you look, and we have to look at things comparatively because it's a two-party race. Even though
Mm,
now people are still going to have a few people are going to have their protest vote and wherever they have that third-party green candidate.
yeah.
So it's a two-party, and we got to look at it comparatively. When we look at the running mates on either side, head to head,
Mm.
maybe there will be. I expect there will be a debate on a vice presidential debate. So head to head, right now, you're not seeing the level of either doubt or regret, right? From either party. I mean, from one party, you're not seeing that as much from the Democratic Party saying, "Oh man, why did we pick Tim Walz? Why?"
Oh, right. Yeah, they're
There's a
both
lot of
standing by
people on the
their picks.
right, and
Yeah.
they're saying, "Oh my God, what did we do?" Because even Trump himself is having some skepticism about some of the things that are coming out of his mouth when he's starting to speak off the cuff. So he's basically going off script.
But is
And
that true?
well, look, for someone who goes off script all the time,
Hmm.
Trump, right? For him to be perturbed by his running mate going in a direction that is not serving him, that's going to be an issue.
But what I'm saying is that true, though? We don't know if that's true. The media has reported that Trump is not
So
so sure about JD Vance, but we don't know if that's true either. That's just like them saying, "Oh,
there's many
Melania and
sources.
him have a transactional relationship." We don't know that. You know, we don't.
I need to pick apart something that I've heard you mention a couple of times. Okay.
Yeah.
Liberal media.
Yes.
Okay. So this is a label that I have to like pick apart.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Because it is a conglomeration of pretty much all media
Hmm.
and in general that all print media, digital media, um, social media, individuals that people get their news from.
Mm.
And then, of course, we have NPR and PBS and a few others. But this idea that all media, that these outlets that are reporting are somehow, all leaning towards the left.
No, I don't think that. I don't
Then,
think.
then
Yeah.
that's what we have to be careful about. We say, oh, yeah, but that's liberal media. Who are
No,
we?
the liberal media, meaning the liberal aspect of the liberal side of the media, as opposed to the conservative media. Not as when I say
Okay.
liberal media, I don't mean all media is
Uh-huh.
liberal. I mean that other half or whatever.
So which ones are liberal?
Oh, I don't know. Look. I think that as an amplifier, social media is liberal, right? I
Yeah.
think that, and
If people are getting the news from social media, I'm like, I feel sorry for them. They're getting
there
news.
is a
They're getting.
whole lot of people getting
Yeah,
their
I know.
news on social media.
Yeah, but
And
that is notoriously unreliable.
well, that's yes, until it becomes the norm. But that's where it's heading. And yeah, of course, then you have the usual suspects like CNN is liberal, Fox is not is conservative. Then you got those, and then you got the old guard, as well, like that. But then I do think if you were to add it all up, I think it would be slightly the media in general. I think is slightly more liberal than it is conservative. Not to say that the conservative voices have been squeezed out, but I'm just saying it does seem to be a little bit louder on the liberal side
I
than.
tend to see more uh, conservative voices, at least being represented in those so-called liberal media outlets, meaning they'll say, "Oh, this is what one side says. This is what the other side says." But uh, I I think it's important to kind of present that. There's always going to be bias. I talk about this all the time in Clubhouse. I do not believe, and most journalists would say this. There is no means by which you can communicate information from a human being and have it produced with whatever purpose of objectivity you want without some bias, what unconscious or unconscious bias. It is not possible because
Yeah,
of
I
the.
understand.
Okay. That
It's
being
always going
said,
to be colored. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that being said, we have to understand that it is it is about who we trust. That's what it comes down to, and who
Yes.
we choose to trust. Remember when you and I, or maybe before you were growing up, people would have three channels to choose from:
Yeah.
ABC, NBC, CBS, and
Yeah.
the one trusted the people that they trusted most tended to be CBS because they trusted Walter Cronkite. Okay, he was the reporter for decades, and
Hmm.
each of their news outlets had that person. But the other thing was they trusted the outlet to be professional and objective in their information gathering and dissemination. They tried to present whatever sides they could. There was this idea of professionalism in journalism. Now, journalism is an industry.
Yeah.
Okay. It is
It's
an
an ad
industry.
generating industry. Yes.
And that's why I tend to go with more of the outlets that either I am paying for, not getting free as a result of putting ads on stuff. I tend to pay for it because
I don't
there's a
think
little
that
bit more.
helps.
Yeah. I mean, you're actually paying for professionals doing a job. That's one thing. The other thing is, or you go for outlets that are nonprofit oriented.
Well, whether
And,
they get paid or not, they're
and,
still after
and
the
they all
same
get
thing, which
paid.
is clicks. But I think that
They
if
all
you have
get
to
paid.
pay for
Everyone
integrity, I
has
think
to have
that
a business model. They
that
all have
proves
to
the
have
point.
some
There
business
isn't any.
model. Even the nonprofits have to have a business model.
Okay,
And
so
so
what the point is?
the point is, every single one of these are going to be leaning at in some reporting or in some story,
Yeah,
one way or the other,
it's all
based
biased.
on
Yes.
interpretation. But overall, I mean, there are people who say, I won't follow this news outlet anymore because of one news story. People do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
And
I'm a fan of both Fox and CNN because I think you have to create your own news. You just have to understand that whatever news you are fed is fiction, and you have to decide for yourself. You have to create your own news.
yeah, I think there's more than two, though. And this is where the big mistake by most people who are consuming information make. It's the biggest mistake. It's the stupidest mistake. People will say, "Oh, okay, I'll do both. I like Fox and I like CNN," as if that's the whole world.
No, that's not. But
Right?
but you know
They
what I
should
mean.
go
To
to Al
start,
Jazeera. They should go to Deutsche Welle. They should go to BBC. They
don't
should
forget
go
Sky News. Okay.
they should go to Japanese news.
Yeah.
Absolutely, official.
People don't have access to
Yes,
all
they do.
those.
They have a
You know.
phone. Yes, they
Yeah.
do.
But you understand, most people are lazy, right? They're just
Okay,
whatever the algorithm serves up, that's what they're going to consume, and that's what they're going to
that's
just
the
believe, and
problem.
that's
You're
it.
waiting for an algorithm to do the work of their own choice.
Well, yes, that's just how most people are. Else they would be politicians, no?
That's how most people are, but
Yeah.
that's a misinformed group of people. That's why they're misinformed.
Well, that's how most
They're
people
not
are.
they're not choosing to say, I would like to get news of the Middle East from Middle Eastern outlets, or even outlets that are based in the Middle East that have bona fide journalists. Okay. And Al Jazeera is one of them. So they should go there. They should go to BBC. They should go to ABC, the Australian broadcast network, very well respected.
Mm-mm.
They should go to Deutsche Welle, German. Do they? In English, by the way. They don't need to know German. there's,
But you
there's
know,
English. There's
depending
English
on where
versions of
you
every one
are,
of these.
and I've experienced this in Spain, where I'll be watching it, or I'll try to watch a video, and it'll be like it's not available in your country, and I'll have to use a VPN just to see that video. Can you believe that? So things are not readily accessible to people,
They
and
can
if
easily get more than 10 sources for free,
yeah,
easily.
yeah.
So they choose to do it. That's why they shouldn't go to just Fox or just CNN or just anyone, any two or three. They should go to several. And that's where I think they get confused because, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, you're saying Fox is conservative. I think it's far more than that.
You think they're radical?
It was funded. No, forget about radical labels and this and that. It was funded heavily from the outset by individuals who wanted it to lean 100% totally Republican. The
Uh,
people who were broadcasters and anchors on the show were fired because they were not in line with certain things, or they left.
yeah. Well, I listen. Every network has their agenda, so
Or but not as much of it being as a litmus test as it was there. And I think it's talk about softballs for anything Trump related. Come on. I mean, I expect it to be conservative. I expected it to be relatively, you know, yeah, more conservative, but not a Trump channel. Okay.
okay. So did you? So do you watch the Megyn Kelly show?
I haven't, no.
Oh, okay. So anyway,
Trump
back to all
and
this no,
yes.
I just want to say that this election more is just like the other ones, the recent two elections. It's just been there's just so much noise in terms of just things that don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Just the comments that were made several years ago, they like to really focus on that, because if you focus on those kind of um school ground insults, then it enables people to not focus on the things that really matter. They don't have to work as hard to explain their policy, if they even have their policies in order. You know what I mean? And I think that's what's happening. I swear, I think that's what's happening with the Democratic Party right now, where they're focusing on all these little things. They're creating all this noise, but there's no talk of
Substantive things.
the substantive things. And even when they interview JD Vance, they spend 3/4 of the interview asking him these stupid things, nothing, and then they don't ask him about policy or anything like that. It's like, God, come on. It's turned into a big gossip rag.
Yeah, yeah. I go back to this issue of choice. How deep do you want to go? I mean, that's the question people need to ask themselves. If they want to look for the headlines and get that information from the headline itself and from headline of whatever news sources they want, they can do that. If they want to go deeper and find out what's going on with any candidate on a given issue, where they stand on it, they can find out.
But
They just
I
have
think we can only condemn the news outlets for so long before we just realize. But it's that the party, either the Democrats or the Republicans, they're just not even throwing them a bone. Like, give them something. Otherwise, they're gonna create their own news.
Yeah, but we're not looking for this is not WWE where we're like, okay, come on, let's have them go at it and bring all the stuff out. And right now, in the next 30 seconds or 1 minute, That's not what this is. This should be uh, a a process that takes longer, and also one in which, I mean, right now, if there's anybody who doesn't know where Kamala Harris stands, or where Tim Walz stands, or where JD Vance stands on issues related to abortion or gun control or immigration, if they don't know that, like they're actually wondering, like, oh, I'm totally confused. I have no idea where they stand on this. They're not.
Well,
They're not looking.
no, but I think that there are some things that are ambiguous, like for example, that seesawing that Kamala is doing between, with the whole immigration thing. First, she wants the borders open, and then now all of a sudden she's saying that no, 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 she's going to fight to keep that border either closed or she's going to enforce it or something. So that seesawing is confusing. And what is the latest one about how Trump was the one that first said that they're not going to tax tips for waiters, but then now all of a sudden Kamala is saying the same thing. So people are legitimately unsure of certain positions.
Yeah, and I think the whole tip thing is a is a, is a really minor issue, but it matters for some people.
A lot of people
And,
in hospitality in that
and
industry.
it's a very complex issue economically, which is why I think if I see a change of heart
Mm,
on behalf of a candidate on a given economic issue,
mm,
and I'm thinking somebody's actually thought about it and made them change their mind.
mhm. Well, that's okay, but you got to
On
articulate
that.
more than you just suddenly change your mind. Because if you suddenly do an about face, people are like, huh? Just kind of like how, JD first was disparaging Trump. And then even though this happened over a course of a number of years, even though he's now supporting Trump, people are still like, huh? Right. So if you're doing it, if you're Kamala and you're doing it in the span of, a few months, going from one thing to another, that's a bigger huh than anything.
It's not. It is absolutely not a huh. You know why? Because these are not issues of high principles or great deep values. These are. This is not people saying, "I was uh, for gun control, but now I think it's all
I'm
about
talking
gun."
about her border thing.
And the border thing. Okay, look. Let's be honest about it. Never in the history or in the future of, unless there's another 9/11, God forbid,
Mhm.
in the future, will there be a closing of the US border? Okay,
Yep.
the whole idea of it being a binary thing, like it's either open or closed, is reflecting an ignorance of how our immigration and border
No,
system.
I don't think they're not pushing for closing the US border.
Right, right. So that's what I mean.
Nobody's
Even the usage of the words, what we understand is that immigration is going to still be always a significant issue.
yes.
And for both parties, whether they're saying it or not, they recognize immigration is necessary, as we talked about it last time. It's about the nuances, but the
It's
language,
about legal immigration versus
yeah,
illegal immigration.
yeah.
That's
And
the real fight.
I don't think anybody is for illegal immigration.
Well, people can say that they're not for illegal immigration, but then
Uh-huh.
if their acts if they commit acts of omission to ensure legal immigration, that's akin to being pro illegal immigration, no?
No,
Okay.
is that because they're not saying I'm against illegal immigration? You're saying they're saying, oh, it's fine
No,
if we have
no,
some.
no, no. I'm saying that despite saying that you're I'm sorry, despite saying that you're anti illegal immigration, okay, you're saying you're anti illegal immigration. However, if you don't take affirmative actions to prevent illegal immigration, that is akin to saying you're pro illegal immigration.
Okay,
In
so
other
let's
words, you
be
need to have
specific.
the
What
acts
what
to back up the
actions would they
words.
not be taking?
You need I don't know, I'm not an elected official. I'm just saying, you as an if you're a politician and you're in a position to do something to prevent illegal immigration, but by not doing it, that's as good as being for pro illegal
Yeah,
immigration.
but see, this is where I think we have to be specific. Like we have to say, I don't know what they could do, but I know they're not doing it. So what I would say is, do you even know what authorities they have and what are the things we actually do? Because most people don't. And if you start looking at those things, you say, oh, okay, yeah, we do have a CBP that's still apprehending people. Oh, we do have people being repatriated back to their countries. Oh, we do have this. It's happening. I
Hmm.
mean, are people who are saying, oh, but you're not doing it. Doing what? Like they're doing it. One of the things that I think is a big issue is the issue of asylum seekers.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
In the history of the United States, when we talked about it last time when we were talking about immigration, you and I, in the history of the United States, we have never been at a point where people, and again, this is a question of what's legitimately seeking asylum and what is not. But there's a process to vet that.
Hmm.
There is a process. It's a legal one. And that when people come in, they have to demonstrate something that shows the legitimacy of their claim. They have to show that. But
Hmm.
anyway, for us to be coming to a point to say, you know what, we should stop asylum seekers.
Are
People
we
who,
saying that? I mean,
no,
I
some
don't.
people are. Yeah.
I don't think that we should necessarily be stopping it, but I also don't think that it's some we should all of a sudden we're the villain for saying, hold on a second. We want to let some in, maybe not as much, but we would also like to help them seek shelter in other countries. I don't think that's wrong either. I don't think that's bad either. Do you know what I mean? I don't think it's our responsibility necessarily to say
They're
yes to
seeking asylum
everybody.
in the United States. They're doing that because that they believe that the principles of this country would support their um, not just their claim, but they would value the freedom they're seeking. And if they're running from not just oppression,
Mhm.
but persecution, whether it's political or otherwise, that we as a country, based on our values, would be um, a welcoming society and community for that, and that's why they're going there. If,
Yeah, but okay, but just
if
because
it,
they
if
think that we're the
it's
right place
rejected,
doesn't mean that we have to let
you
them
don't.
in,
No, you
all
don't.
of them. Yeah.
No, you don't. You don't. But it's hard to put a number on it. But because suddenly you have, uh, a Vietnam, or suddenly you have an Afghanistan, or suddenly you have somewhere in Africa, people who are being slaughtered, or being targeted for their political views. You have a Turkey, where you have no legitimate candidate would could run against uh, uh, Erdogan for a long time. They had to flee. The guy who would have been the legitimate candidate to run against him, he's been in Pennsylvania.
So
And
I think that Americans would probably not even be so focused on even illegal immigration or too much immigration, whatever, if they felt like they were being taken care of back home, right? So if Americans didn't feel pinched when it comes to things like inflation or cleaning up their own neighborhoods, homelessness, all those problems that exist within our country. If Americans didn't feel like we had so many of our own problems that were unaddressed, if they didn't feel that way, they probably wouldn't then look at other things. But because they feel like even back home our government isn't taking care of these problems that are really affecting us day to day. Now that's why they're now starting to find sort of, I guess, like you say, find blame, like find blame on other things. And so they're going to turn to not just immigrants, but other issues that maybe we shouldn't be blaming, right? But I think it's just fatigue and frustration from why aren't we well at home, but yet at the same time we're focused on bringing other people here. I think that if you guys want to keep immigration coming in and accepting every single applicant, then maybe divert also more resources to just making things good and well back
yeah,
home first.
well, the one thing that I would definitely grant here in this talk about where it plays, it is still going to be a significant issue in the election for
Hmm.
sure.
It will, yeah.
And I think there needs to be, and I hope we don't have to wait till the debate to have this, but there needs to be a very clear uh, and concrete discussion about these specific issues and policies, because that's where some of these swing voters are. They're like, you know what? I just don't want an open border or whatever they perceive as an open border. Or, you know what? I think we should be able to uh, consider those people who are seeking asylum and whatnot, while maintaining the integrity of our borders. They want to see where they stand on it. And right now, we're not getting that substantive discussion, right?
Mhm.
So, so I think people need to hear that, and it'll give them a clearer picture. And I don't mean just you and I, but we as a country can continue to talk about all these facets of immigration and what should or shouldn't be done. But at the end of the day, and at the end of this election, we want to know where people are on this. We're not going to decide it, but we know that these individuals who are going to be elected, one of these two running pairs is going to win, and they're going to have a huge impact on what's going to happen at the southern border, at any border, at our airports, everything, people coming in and out, and also just where we stand on these issues of principle as a country. They need to be able to hear that. And I'm with you on this. I hope we can hear that soon because we haven't. There hasn't been much of it substantively between the two. We've been here a lot of. There's been a lot of mudslinging, right? And it's to be true. It's from both sides, uh, but we need to make sure at least some of these exchanges are getting to be more substantive.
Yeah, the mudslinging is not good. Well, it's like the pregame, but really it's not good because but they do it because they know that if you do enough mudslinging, you just kind of once there's enough dirt on somebody, then even if they're saying something that makes good sense, you're not going to even go for it anymore because they've got so much mud on them.
You know what
So that's why they do it.
what I'm still concerned about because
What?
I actually heard it on my recent trip from some young people. When I say young people, I'm an old person. Okay, so well, I'm not Biden old or Trump old, but I'm older. And when I say young people, I mean people in their 20s and 30s.
Hmm.
And there are some people in that age group, who are thinking this: I'm not going to vote.
Good.
Right? They're like,
These woke young idiots. Yeah, go ahead.
they're like, I'm not voting,
Uh-huh.
and I'm worried about other things. Yeah, I do hope I can get a job in my field. I hope I can start paying off these student loans. But I don't like these candidates. They're not speaking to me. I'm not going to vote. I personally think that's a mistake.
Hmm.
That's my own view. And I've heard other people within their peer group also say, I know people who have decided not to vote. They've already decided at this point, because we're less than a few months out, they've decided they're not going to vote.
You're
And
speaking to people that are heavily, the blue wall states, right?
uh, I think they're in states where uh, maybe, what did you say, the blue walls state?
Yeah, the blue wall states where, like California, no matter what you do, you're going to be a blue state, no matter, you know what I mean? So people don't feel like, it doesn't matter. My vote doesn't matter.
It's possible that those people who are choosing not to vote are in a state where their their state is already clearly in the blue or clearly in the red. And in
Hmm.
most cases, in young people, they're mostly in blue states,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because those people, they're like, you know what? I don't like Biden. I don't like Kamala Harris because they're not speaking to me. It's not like they like Trump. It's like they're not speaking to me, and they're not addressing my issues and my progressive issues, my issues related to environment or anything else. They're just saying, my vote's not even going to matter.
Hmm.
So they're like, I'm not going to vote.
It's been like that, has been like that forever and ever and ever. Like,
Yeah, it,
because
it
people,
continues.
they see on every election night, they see that it's just the swing states that matter. That's why.
Yeah, and then there's some purple states. I mean, and like I think North Carolina There's states like that which have become bluer,
Mm.
uh, and they may go. I if you look over a period of 5 to 10 years, there's a number of states that you can say are going to go from blue to red. I'm sorry, I don't
Red
want
to blue.
red
I
to
think
blue.
it's
Red to blue.
so it's a good thing that
You don't see any states where you can say, man, it's going to go from blue to red.
it's because so many people are leaving California. That's why.
Yeah, but where are they going? Yeah, they're going to Texas.
Yeah, they're going to Texas. They're going to North Carolina, where the
Yeah,
cost of living is cheaper. That's why those states are turning purple.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, the writing's on the wall. When you talk about over a period of a decade or so plus, where these 20 somethings are 40 somethings, uh, it doesn't look good for
The Red Party.
no.
I don't necessarily agree with that, only
Okay.
because people's political positions tend to change after when they get older, when they've been working for a while, when they have
Mhm.
families, when their finances change. Political positions can change.
True. Yeah.
So, and you know this to be a fact because all these C-level executives, maybe at one time they were like total stoners and everything. When they were young, they're super liberals, blah blah blah. Now, now look at them.
Yeah, but
People
they don't
change.
necessarily go from, you know, way left to way right.
Who knows? I look at Elon Musk.
Yeah, but I would say generally you can see a movement to being a little bit more conservative from where you were when you were younger and more or less uh, risk averse. That you were.
Yes,
So then I could see that. But to say that, I am for gun control or I am for not open borders, but I'm for immigration policy and that allows, all these people from different countries to come in. I could see them becoming more conservative and saying, you know what? Okay, I want immigration, but yeah, I think we need to be more restrictive. I can see that. I can see that uh, on issues related to those kinds of things. Economically, I can see people becoming more conservative, but not necessarily being protectionist and isolationist economically. So that's what I mean from one extreme to the other. But yeah,
but also things happen a lot faster now, right? With accelerated by the changing landscape of the media, the quick dissemination of information. So what happens is even if you are walking towards the other direction or even further in the direction that you're going, you're assisted by almost like those movable pathways at the airport. You're walking, and that thing, your ground is also walking, is going faster, helping to accelerate your wherever you're moving. Why? Because the goalpost keeps changing, the markers. Because even if you were once in the middle is no longer the middle anymore. Even if you didn't move at all, you would now be considered conservative because it just keeps changing, right? Because things become more and more radical, or radicalizing more on the left, more on the right. So you, even if you didn't move at all, the circumstance has moved. Society has moved around you, and so you naturally now are more liberal or more conservative without even you doing anything. And if you are moving in that direction, well, it's even further accelerated by external conditions.
yeah, no, that's true. Things are always changing. That's why I think elections, whether they're every 2 years, as they are for representatives, or they are every 4 years, or every 6 years for senators, it's a good barometer to see what's happening. Where are people, you know, drifting towards? Which way are they going? Every couple of years, we can kind of get a sense of that. And especially during a presidential election. And and if we're reading the tea leaves right now and we're reading what's going on, uh, I don't think there's been a sea change in the last 2 or 3 months since a couple months since Biden has dropped out. I don't think that has been the thing. That if there's any momentum going one way or the other for any party, it's really about, do we have leaders that can look longer term for the future of the country? And that's where I think the momentum has been moving towards Kamala and Tim Walz. Tim Walz. You look at Tim Walz. People were looking at pictures of him, and I remember them talking about it on one of the programs, and they're like, "Yeah, they kind of juxtapose each other. She's young, and he's a bit older." And then the guy corrected him. He said, "What? They're the same age. They're both about 6 months apart from each other. He just looks older because he's with his white hair.
Sure does. Yeah.
They're 6 months apart. They're in their they're in
Yeah.
their late 50s.
Tom Cruise is older than him. Brad Pitt is older than him.
That's right. So this is a youthful. Now, so is JD Vance. That's why JD Vance was also picked. Okay. And so I think what you can say about both of these uh, pairings of candidates is that they recognize that we can't have leadership that only speaks to and speaks from a generation of people in their 70s and 80s.
Well, in the case of JD Vance, I think he's just Trump mini me.
Yeah, but yeah, like mini. Okay.
Mini me, like he couldn't have chosen a better VP, I think, because the guy's just like him, likes to say inflammatory things, likes to be hyperbolic.
Yeah, but he can't be a mini Trump, because a mini Trump would mean that it's someone who never wants to be upstaged.
Oh, I see.
Trump is always going to be the main guy on the stage. Always, doesn't matter who he picked. He will never have someone who upstages him.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe
Cannot
that's the reason. We can say that's the reason why Kamala picked this guy Tim Walz, because the guy Tim Walz does not. He just yeah. He seems very passive compared to
Well,
her.
you got to have a cheerleader. That's normal.
Yeah.
Like every vice president is going to be a cheerleader for their candidate, their partner. That's normal. What you don't want is someone who's as bombastic and outrageous and getting more attention than the primary candidate.
Yeah. Well, JD's is Donald Trump's attack dog, and I think Tim Walz is Kamala's. I don't know.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. It's getting closer and closer. We're what? Let's see, a couple
85
months.
days.
85 days.
Something
Yeah,
like that. 80 some days.
literally
Tell me.
counting the days down.
So tell me, you actually like Tim Walz. You dislike JD Vance. Can we say that?
I think that Tim Walz serves Kamala Harris better than Jason Vance serves Trump.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean my own stance on who's a better candidate is pretty transparent. I mean, I'm anyone hearing me at all is not going to hear anything other than, yeah, right now we have a better candidacy on the side of Walz and Kamala Harris.
No, but I think it's too early to call that. I think it's too early for you to even make that judgment call, only because we haven't heard from them yet. Like how the Republicans are accusing them of just putting a teleprompter between them and the media, that they will not do interviews. Okay, so therefore they've not answered any difficult questions yet. So I think it's just too soon for you to say that. No. Except that you're maybe a diehard Democrat, and that's okay.
I'm not a diehard Democrat. I was a Republican. I was a Reagan Republican.
Oh, it's that Reagan is like the safest Republican to be for, but okay.
No, but it wasn't about Reagan.
Mm-hmm.
It was about the party of Reagan at the time, which was a more
Less
centrist,
radical. Yes.
was a centrist party.
Yeah.
It was a party of fiscal conservatism.
Yes.
It was a party of smaller government. It was many things related to that.
Sure.
We forget what conservatism it was like
Yeah.
because it seems like ancient history.
Mm-hmm.
This is not conservatism. This party is not conservatism. It isn't.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Trump party.
Mm-hmm.
No one doubts that. There are people who are vehemently, they would say, yeah, we don't align at all with Trump uh, on his lines of piety, religiosity, or anything to do with religion. But who do you think is lining up with him?
Mm-hmm.
Evangelicals and people who are otherwise uh, religious organizations.
Mm-hmm.
Is it because of where he lines up on issues related to divorce, marital relationships, long-term, all that stuff, family? Come on, that's not Trump. That's not him. I mean, but they like him. So what does that tell you? There are
I
people
think
who
I
they're
think
also. You can also talk about it on economics. Same thing. He's taking wacko stuff that doesn't make any sense economically,
mm-hmm.
but they're like, yeah, yeah, we like him. It,
Well, yes, because whether it makes sense or not, I don't know. I haven't paid that much attention to what he said about the economy, but I think that what happens generally with people is that they're not bound to the facts; they're bound to their emotions. And if he speaks to their emotion, he wins them over. He casts a spell over
yes, but
them.
he
That's
loses some. Look, that's the thing. You can speak to those people, and they will follow you.
mm,
I have close friends, very close. We see them regularly. We go to have dinners together with at their house,
mm.
and they're at our house regularly. They're Republicans. They will never vote for Trump.
Yes, of course there are people like that. There are Democrats who won't vote for Kamala Harris either.
Yes, but they have felt disenfranchised to a degree
Mm.
that that is unprecedented in the history of American politics, because they have felt that over the last several years, it has become a party of one person.
Yes, I know they don't like. They just don't like him as a person. I get it. Yes, he's.
No, they're saying the party should not be identified by a person. That's a big difference. It's not like saying, I don't like somebody. They're saying they have been pushed out. They have been marginalized as a party. As a
Okay,
member of that party, they've been marginalized.
you can say that, or you can argue
But
that
you
you have
cannot,
you
no,
have
the
these
platform,
relics. There are
the
these
platform,
relics that fail to see that the party maybe needs to evolve as well. Is that possible to
what they're
adopt
saying
that
is
perspective?
that if you speak against certain issues on the platform
Mm.
that have been promulgated by either him or people who are just simply listening to him, that's what the platform has been. That's the result. That's what it's a product of. If you say, no, this is not something that our party should stand for, and it goes against the very basic principles of conservatism, fiscal or otherwise,
That's one way to look at it. I
then
think that
there's
it's a plausible way. You can certainly look at it that way, but or you can also say, it's nice to see that the in the executive branch, the power and the voice is returning to the executive. I mean, you could,
when was that not the case?
huh?
When was that not the case?
Well, look at Biden. Half the
No,
time in his
we still have
administration, he wasn't there.
no. He was there. People didn't like his um, the way he carried himself, how he spoke, his vigor. Uh, you know, when the cameras were on and he had a slippage of whatever it was he was saying, that was it. But that didn't change his authority. It didn't change his ability to write what he wanted to write or to express what he wanted to express and or to pursue a policy. He was still able to do that. That's always been the case with with whichever president was there. To say that the presidency itself has been eroded is not true, and that we need to have someone who now exercises that ability. That's reflecting an ignorance of what was there.
No, but how can you say that there was no erosion of the presidency when you have whenever Biden actually was able to say something that was, cogent, that it was almost like phew, and then secondly, how all of a sudden, like, they did force him out, right?
You're not talking
And
about
there
the
was,
presidency. You're talking about an instance of optics. Like,
I
oh,
think,
okay, that no,
but it
wow.
wasn't one time though. Right? Like when the gaffes, it wasn't like once or twice. It was like a lot, right? You
And you're
can
saying we weren't holding our breaths every day when Trump was in office as to what he would say? Of
if
course we were.
in a different no, but in a different way, you're holding your breath because you're like, oh no, what crazy radical thing is he gonna say? That's very different. He
Yes,
was in
not
he
just
was
crazy
no, but
radical,
he
irresponsible.
yeah, but he
That
was
even
in
his
full
closest
control.
advisors would say, please don't talk.
He was in full control of his message. You were holding your breath because you didn't like his message. Biden, he was not in full control of his message.
No, no,
We
no.
were like holding our breath because we were worried that he didn't even know
Forget
what he
about
was saying.
anybody else listening. Forget about anybody else listening who's not a member of his entourage. Those people who were most concerned
Yeah.
were the people immediately around him.
Yeah, no, I'm not disagreeing with the problem with what Trump was saying, which is the substance of what he was saying
Yeah.
was cause for concern. However, you did realize that he had full agency over his words. Biden did not have that, right? So it's kind of like when people say Trump should stop tweeting. I would say no, he should not stop tweeting because you get the real Trump
No,
when
no,
you
no.
let him speak his
I,
words and whatever, and th're not altered, unlike they
I
might be
think,
altered by the media.
yeah.
Whether you
I,
like him or not, you know that he's 100% what he says. That's what you're actually getting. So if you want to condemn him, you condemn him based on his Twitter. You don't condemn him based on what the media says about him, right? Because what he says on Twitter, 100% he can take ownership of it.
and he often didn't.
But you okay, but you get what I'm saying though. But forget what
I'll even
his
say he
but
never said certain things that he
I'm
did
just
say.
saying, no, I'm just saying if you want the real Trump, go with his Twitter. It's more reliable than going with what the media says about him because he is in full control of his Twitter. He's not in control of what the media says. They twist his
Yeah,
words,
but you're selectively just looking at what he does on Twitter. I mean, there's also a million other things that he does outside of Twitter when he's speaking to world leaders, when he's speaking at an event, when he was at so many different situations. Forget about press conferences, which he hardly ever held. But there's that. Look, we can do a forever comparison point by point as to what happened during one presidency or another. What we can say is the authorities and the actual essence and the nature of the presidency did not change. It was the person. It was the person. So he's not going to restore anything coming back to the presidency. There was no erosion of the presidency any more than there was an erosion from day one after the Constitution separated powers between the legislative branch and the executive branch. We're always going to have that imbalance. We're always going to have a check on that system to say the presidency is not going to have absolute power, which is, by the way, what he was seeking. And that's why he wants to, you know, put a heavy weight on one side of the scales at the Supreme Court. So, look, I think there's a lot of issues at stake in this election. And it's not just about who is in that seat. It is about whether our system is going to operate in a way that allows people to work together to achieve common goals. And that's, I think, what people are looking for. I'm not even talking about from my own perspective. It is what people get elected to do. People do not get elected to just be up on a stage and say bombastic things, in spite of what people might believe. That's not what politicians actually are elected to do. They're elected to make decisions on really important matters that affect every human being in this country. And that's the thing that people realized, oh my God, we can't just like vote for people who say crazy shit, you know?
Oh, really? Okay, because
No, meaning that's
I,
the main
yeah,
reason.
no, but I just
That's
don't
the
think
main
that
thing you're
saying
looking for.
yeah, I don't think that saying the bombastic things. Okay, look, you want a president that maybe doesn't say crazy things, but at the same time, I think for me, it's okay, you say crazy things which causes us to have to verify and monitor. Not you say crazy things and therefore you're not qualified to be president. That's how I see it
No, we just want people who are really responsible and have some degree of
in their
integrity.
actions. Maybe maybe he can be pegged to be irresponsible in his words, in his word choice or whatever, but I think that ultimately we got to look to the actions, not
There's a
just the
case to
words.
be made. There's a
Hmm?
very good case to be made. I mean, no candidate is of perfect character. We've had character flaws that were relatively minor that would completely disqualify a candidate from even running in the 1970s and 80s. Oh, you're saying you might possibly have cheated on your wife? Oh, no way. That guy was out. Okay. So that was then. We don't expect perfect character, but we do want people of some integrity and responsibility. Like that should be a pretty low bar. Like, can we say we want people of some integrity and character? And that if they demonstrate anything that makes us question that, maybe we don't want them running an entire country of 350 million people and maybe potentially starting World War III. That's what I'm saying, man. I mean,
Okay, wait a
people,
minute. Were you asleep during the Clinton presidency?
no. And I said degrees. I said a degree of some responsibility and character. I'm not, there were,
Perjury,
there has been,
absolute perjury.
you don't have to go that far. You don't even have to go in recent history. JFK was clearly uh, not loyal to his wife. Okay,
I really don't
while he
even
was
care
in
about the
office,
kind of infidelity with these politicians, to be
and
honest. But
we,
yes,
we can talk about infidelity. We can talk about failures of character, or whether they did marijuana before it was legal and did drugs or whatever. We can talk about all those things, but when you're saying not certain poor, not certain judgments of uh, momentary poor judgments, momentary or otherwise ongoing for months or maybe a year or two, whatever it was. We're not talking about that. And also just being humanly flawed people, as we all are. I expect people to be flawed. I don't want fundamental, like, oh my God, you cannot trust what this person's going to say. You cannot, like, if you get to a point where you say, well, at least he's saying something, if that's your bar, it's too low a bar for me. Like, you have to say, okay, we're looking for someone, male, female, okay, or possibly in the future somewhere in between, but male or female that can make decisions that we're reasonably comfortable with. Can they do that occasionally on a day-to-day basis so we can say, I'm not going to be worried about my kids' generations and their grandkids, or whether we're going to have a major war that doesn't need to be started, or we have to have a big spat for someone because you felt slightly insulted. I mean, this is This is not necessary anymore. We don't have to have the situations like that. We've tried it. We've had him there, and it's now like there's nothing new. I think this is why Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are even probably getting some momentum. We know Biden. There's nothing new there. Like we know him. Nothing new. Same thing with Trump. We know him. Nothing new. And that what people are looking for when they have elections, national elections in the United States, they want something to look forward to, something of either that's novel or innovative or a different way of thinking than we've done before. That's the history of the country.
Yes,
That's
that's how Trump won the first time. But in
yeah,
in the Harris Walz campaign so far right now, we whatever newness people perceive, it's truly is their perception. It's not real. It's I'm not saying that it
real
isn't
to
ever
them.
going to be real, but it's not materialized yet because they've not spoken really to the country or
Kamala
to
Harris is
reporters
not
yet.
Kamala Harris is not new to you,
Hmm.
uh, and Tim Walz is not new to Minnesotans. He is, and in spite of her being a vice president, uh, definitely a very quiet one, and in the back burner, hardly ever noticed during the entire 4 years. Uh, she's relatively new to a lot of people.
They were quiet too before they stabbed Julius Caesar in the back. No, I'm joking.
So, I mean, so there is a novelty there, and there is a youthness, there's a youthfulness there. You know,
Yes, a youthful, exuberant 60-year-old.
look, look, we are maybe to a fault. We as Americans are idealistic. It's like I'm going to make a really strange analogy. You ready?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So when Craigslist was more of a thing than Facebook Marketplace, you go
Hmm.
buy something on
Hmm.
Craigslist, right?
Yeah.
And you say, "Oh," and you're looking at that couch, or you're looking at that whatever it was that you're buying, and you're like, "Ah, it looks pretty good." You're and and they may even have pointed out, "Oh, okay, it's old, it's used," and you're like, "Great condition," and you're like, "Okay, I'm going to go check it out. I want so this is not going to last long. I'm going to act on this before it disappears."
Uh-huh.
But between the time that you leave and arrive at this place where this couch is, you filled in all these gaps. You're thinking, I know the perfect place for this couch. It is a beautiful couch. It's
Oh,
this.
I hope nobody else buys it.
I hope nobody else buys it.
Yeah.
And then you get there, you're like, what the? Are you kidding me? And then you're mad at the person for putting up that picture that might have been 2 years old, right? And like, this, this, this is a piece of crap. I don't want this.
Are you describing the Harris Walls campaign?
No, I'm
Oh,
describing American mentality of
uh,
idealism. We
uh,
want things to be great,
yes.
even when they might not be,
Hmm.
whether it is a couch or a future leader. And,
Yeah.
and so we have this idea
Foolish
of hope,
optimism. Okay.
optimism, hope. Things are going to be better. It's going to be much better than it was, and we want to believe that. And politicians want to give us that too. And at some point, we have to recognize, yeah, we're going to be disappointed. And we might even realize that at some point, but we still want something better.
Oh no, I think it's that they want something different, except that they have that presumes also that she is different from Biden, right? That's an
Mm.
assumption that people are having to make, that they're hoping people will not connect her with Biden. But that's not been proven yet. That's the thing, and it
Yeah.
won't be until she starts speaking to reporters. That's why I'm saying is like, and she has no incentive to, because it's a bunch of idealistic people and the media who's kind of just creating the narrative for her, That's why they're calling it this honeymoon period. She's just going to let other people do all the work, create this fantasy that doesn't exist for her right now, that isn't reality, and let people just sort of wallow, full body immersion into this fantasy, and let them get drunk on this fantasy. That'll just mean it'll be much easier when she comes in, just says a few words, because you guys have been waiting for so long that whatever bone she throws you, you're so happy to gnaw on it just before the
It could
election. You're
be.
ready to go.
It could be. It could be. And the more I'm talking about this, the more I'm talking about idealism and the sense of what we want versus what we actually have. I'm thinking of a new topic for a
Yeah,
future discussion,
sure.
and that is our own unconscious biases.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, as I'm talking about it, I'm pretty, and I think you're also, expressing that whatever uh, preference you have, what preferences I have, or what kinds of thoughts I have about certain issues. It starts to come to the surface, but we have our biases. I have my biases, and I think it's important to confront them
Hmm.
somehow in a way that is safe and yeah, just transparent. Just say yeah, and kind of understand where it comes from. Uh, I have had no personal interaction with Trump in my entire life. I don't know if I want that, but everything I get about him, everything I understand about him comes from somewhere else, right? It's not my own personal experience.
Mm.
What I hear, it's what I read, it's what I'm told, and at some point, I absorb it, and I'm thinking based on my personal experience, my journey, whatever that journey took me through in life, and how everything that I've received filters through that. This is how it comes out. But it's not a clean process, right? Because it's very muddled in all kinds of different traumas and experiences and individual interactions with other people who may mirror some qualities similar to him. And so there's that. I mean, we need to figure out, like, where are these, how do we know what we know? This is not a philosophical question. It's more of
Mm.
like you know what I'm getting at?
Well, yeah. So here's the thing, right? I feel like anymore media that confirms or affirms our beliefs is the most dangerous type these days because of the algorithm. Look,
Yeah.
let's say you're liberal, and so you click. All you need is to click on one or two liberally bent slanted articles, and then you're going to be fed nonstop that same angle, which then continues to reinforce your belief, which that doesn't help anything, right? And so that's why I think that the danger is consuming it, the danger in today's world is the more that you read that sort of aligns with your current beliefs, the less you can trust of that type of news. It's the news that tells you something that you're not keen on hearing is the kind that you should be actually paying more attention to, not necessarily to believe it or take it as truth, but to ignite something within you to dig deeper. News that just tells you what you want to hear is it in my opinion bad news.
Oh yeah, it's the most dangerous thing I think we have today because of the immediate access that we have to information and the algorithms that feed that information to us. And and unless we break that cycle that is in that algorithm that just feeds us what we think we already know, or feeds us information that we're inclined to believe, if we don't break that cycle and start going out of the loop, right, to say, oh, what are other people saying, like, what am I not hearing, what am I not looking at, what am I typically just driving towards all the time, that is creating and driving all my feelings and opinions and views on things. And what is it that those who disagree with me, what are they hearing? And I think that's really important to do. It takes more effort, frankly, because the algorithm simplifies it, makes it easy. The natural thing to do would be to just stay within the loop, You
Yeah,
know,
the
stay
the
within that
algorithm
matrix.
the algorithm is controlling our right to free speech in a way, because you have people like that guy. What's his name? Thomas Brennan, some EU bigwig who sent a letter ahead of the Elon Musk Trump interview, warning the nerve, what gall, warning Elon Musk. You better be careful of disinformation, amplifying disinformation, and you're going to be in violation of EU rules. Did you hear about this?
Yeah, I think,
Right?
yeah.
What nerve? It's like, what does this have to do with you? This is an American election, So I'm happy with Elon's
See,
response to
yeah,
him.
but I think what we're just saying here still holds true. I mean, the people who already agree on many levels with Elon Musk and or Donald Trump probably are not going to get a lot of new information. They might talk about new topics. They're not going to get a new direction. Oh, wow, that was a revelation. I didn't know that. Now I'm thinking differently about this issue. And maybe um, I'm steered more towards this uh, philosophical or approach to thinking that I wasn't before. I don't know. I mean,
But don't you find that
yeah,
offensive? It's like, why don't you stay in your own lane? Uh, and I guess they have they have a different understanding on what is freedom of speech.
I think it is insulting. I have to agree with you on that. We need to be able to make our own choices, and we need to be able to say, yeah, totally. There's nothing wrong with listening to uh, Donald Trump and Elon Musk, even if I already agree with them, or maybe they're just feeding information that is false. It is insulting, but only if you are going outside of that channel of information are you going to know if there's any other way of looking at it. Like you need to have both. You need to be able to hear them, and you need to hear what people are saying to counter them, and then evaluate it and take the time to understand why one is diametrically opposed or maybe not aligned with the other, and why one might be even false. I mean, who takes the time and effort journalistically to understand an issue at that level? Almost no one. That's why we have journalists, and that's why we want them to do the work for us. We want them to understand something, do the critical thinking, do the analysis, and let us make the decision. That's what great journalism is. Even that journalism is somewhat biased, but it's better than being fed. Here's here's who's stupid, and here's who's smart. This guy's better. This one's worse. Whoever.
Which is what Thomas Brennan wants to do. He is recklessly using the word disinformation as a way of controlling the information that the European people can consume regarding our election. What he's doing is 100% wrong and anti-American. Now you can say, "Oh, he's not American," but you know what? Let's look. You purport to be a democracy, and you're trying to put a chilling effect on speech. What the hell?
Yeah.
It's really
Just
offensive.
to
It
give you a
really
heads up,
is.
I've got a hard stop in a few minutes. I'm going to have to
Yeah.
head out soon. Um, but I want to continue this conversation. I think this is really important. This idea of it's not just about media and how we label it and what is good media, what is bad media. It's really about how do we want to get information that is helping us make well-informed, intelligent decisions. How do we do that? And also, do we understand our own filters? I think it's really important, and especially when we have such consequential events as elections. And, you know,
So we should be grateful to Donald Trump for making the phrase fake news a household word.
yeah, because we just realized, well, I don't know. I
We
think it's
just learned
confusing.
of the fallibility of news in the last 8 years. Okay,
I don't think
right?
we learned about it just through that one label. It's always been there,
Yes,
and,
but for most people, it really hit home like, okay, hold on a
yeah,
second. And it was,
it was used as
it
a
was a
weapon.
great label. It was a great label to call it fake news. Now,
Yeah,
people,
but it
now
was
people
used
really
as
get
a
it.
weapon for anything he disagreed with.
Oh, okay, yes. Regardless of the motivation behind it, I'm just looking at the result of it is that we are more keen. We are more aware now. We are not looking at news sources as infallible. So something good came out of it, even if I'm to agree with you that his motivation for creating this term was, for self gain.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
More fake news to come.
More, yeah. Keep listening if you want more fake
Stay
podcasts.
tuned.
No, not
Come
here,
back.
not here.
Come back next week for more fake news.
Yeah, right, exactly. With Ben and Uther. Thank you for joining. Thank you, Uther. That was a very nice conversation.
Yeah, that was good. It was good. I like it, and I like how we can kind of. I mean, I'm trying as best I can to kind of question my own processes, but
Mhm.
and nobody's process perfect. We know that we're just trying to pick it apart. But it's great to talk about it with you. Thanks, Ben.
Yep, thank you. Okay,
All right,
thanks everybody.
have a good
Bye-bye.
one.
Yeah.